everyone, welcome back to another truck camper video. Today we're going to do something a little different. As you can see, I'm in my camper right now. The top is popped down, and that's because it's currently in my garage. With the camper currently in the garage and not on the truck yet, as I still have a few projects to do to get the camper on the truck, I still want to continue to make videos. And so what I'll be doing is kicking off a new series today where I actually recap a lot of the work I did with the camper before I started making videos. I got this camper in 2015, but I didn't get into videos until 2017, and I did a whole lot of work before I started documenting on YouTube. And so what I'm going to be doing for the next handful of videos is actually recapping all that work I did before I got my GoPro. Also, before we get into anything, I want to give you a brief update of where I've been. I know since the end of the year in 2018, the videos have been kind of slow, just a trickle here and there. I want to give you a little recap of what I've personally been up to, introduce the new folks to this channel, and get this whole thing started for 2019. I think it's going to be a really big year for both this channel and me personally, and so I'd love to have you follow along. If you aren't already a subscriber, do consider subscribing, and if you are already, thanks for being here. I'm glad to have you back. So like I said before, the goal of this next video series is going to be recapping the build project of this camper up until when I started making video. Luckily, I had been documenting this entire build through photos for those first 2 years. A lot of that's on the website called Wander the West, which is the pinnacle online forum for these four-wheel camper owners. I go by the name Living the Dream over there. I'll be sure to link to my build page below, which has a lot of extensive discussion, some 30 pages, all about the purchasing of this camper and how I came to get it, what I did with it, and how all that process got started. But that's what we're here to talk about today. So today's video is going to be why I got this truck camper in the first place. What was it like? How much did I pay for it? All of that type of fun details. The next few videos will cover topics such as mounting this camper to my old Toyota and the airbag system in the back to help support that, how I started tearing this whole thing down before I even realized I was going to do that, how I started redoing the roof, so I put in new insulation in the ceiling, and then that's eventually going to bring us up to where the videos kicked in, which was the cabinetry, the sewing of the canvas, and things like that. So really not an awful lot of work, a lot of demo work, and what I'll be doing is I'll be slideshowing. So just sitting here in the camper, kind of talking about, looking back on photos and sharing this story with you. Before we get back into the camper, I keep switching back and forth. Personally, what I've been up to, why haven't I had a video in a while? As you know from my previous videos, at the end of 2018, I sold my Tacoma and bought a new Tundra. Here's a picture of that beautiful Tundra that I'm super happy with. You might know this, but the reason I needed the bigger Tundra is because I now have a kid. My child was born on February 1st, and so that really took up a lot of my time. That's my first son. His name is Patrick. He's doing fantastic. You'll probably see him on this videos a few times, but I don't plan on featuring him all too much. I won't be a stickler about his privacy, but at the same time, I do want to respect him and let him decide when to come out onto the internet and figure that out as he grows up. So most of these videos here will be continuing to revolve around me personally, but every once in a while, he might sneak into a few as well. I will say quick, if you know me personally, if you're a family member or a close friend, I actually do sometimes make videos just about my son that I don't post publicly. So just shoot me an email and I'll be sure to send those links over to you as well. They're pretty cute, mostly just home videos and things like that. Also, what happened right around February was that I finished my PhD. If you didn't know this, I've been in a PhD program at the University of Colorado Boulder, mechanical engineering, for the past 6 years. It took me a while to finish that. So on February, what was it, 18th, 19th, I finally defended that. So in the end of January, I wrote up and finished the rest of my dissertation. In mid-February, I defended it, and I'm happy to say I'm successfully now a doctorate. I think my degree actually gets issued in May, but no big deal, I am done with that. What's next for me in my professional career is actually I'm spinning out a company based on some of the research myself and my colleagues have developed at CU Boulder. That company's called Artimus Robotics. I'm the co-founder and CEO leading this commercialization effort. If you ever want to chat with me about that too, I talk a lot about what I'm doing in the field of robotics and automation. So always reach out with questions. Check us out, artimusrobotics.com. Hopefully you'll see a lot of big things coming from us in the coming years. But with that, that's enough about me. I know why you're here to this channel, and that's mostly to talk about this beautiful truck camper. So we'll just start with story time, and I'll be throwing in slideshows that I've dug up from a variety of photos leading up to today. So the first thing I want to talk about is I wouldn't have a truck camper without a truck. So my first bigger truck, I actually had a Ford Ranger originally. Then I got the Toyota Tacoma in 2011 when I finished my undergraduate degree. With that, I was living down in Knoxville, Tennessee, and I started thinking about a truck camper. Actually, one thing I saw originally was one of those old 6-pack campers, the hard shells that fit in the back of a Tacoma. That kind of struck my interest, got me thinking about truck campers. However, nothing really happened. Although I lived in Knoxville, Tennessee for about a year and a half, I never really made moves with that. I was living a pretty quiet, simple life down there. And then my girlfriend at the time, now wife, and I decided to travel the world. So the truck just got parked for a while. Wasn't really into trucks, wasn't into vehicles. We were living over in Chamonix, France for a while. I was there for a ski season, had a fantastic time. Then we were in Thailand, so just being classic young 20-something-year-old backpackers, didn't have a vehicle, just parked collecting dust in my parents' barn. However, after our travels, we moved back to the US and we moved to Boulder, Colorado. If you haven't picked up yet, you probably have based on my other videos. One of my passions is skiing. Boulder is fantastically located, beautiful climate, awesome city to live in, but it's truly not a ski town. There's actually this thing called I-70, which is brutal traffic. Check it out on Google Maps. You'll see that maybe Winter Park, which is a ski resort I like to go to, hour and a half, hour 45 on the map. But in actuality, on a Saturday or Sunday morning, that drive can take you well over 2 hours. And that is not something I wanted to do. After living in Chamonix, where I would just walk to the ski mountains every day, I just really valued being in the ski resorts, having everything right there and not dealing with traffic. And so that's when I really started thinking about trucks and truck campers. I had my Tacoma again, and I really wanted to find something that would allow me to travel when other people aren't, and to be and sleep closer to the ski resorts. Before I had the camper, I did just have a shell on my truck. I had bought that when I was moving from Knoxville back up to New York and eventually out to Colorado. That shell I actually bought for $100 off of some truck accessory store in Nashville, and it served me very well. I actually flipped that when I was out here in Colorado, and I think I sold it for like $400 or $500 later. It was a beautiful classic aluminum shell, had a high top, lots of space. So I had the camper shell, but I knew I wanted something more like a camper. I wanted something I could stand up in. And I started to look around a lot into what type of campers I could put in the back of my Tacoma. That led me to the website wanderthewest.com, which, like I said, is a really great kind of camping, overlanding forum that I spend a lot of time on. And one of the dominant brands on that website is 4-wheel campers. That's when I learned about 4-wheel campers, discovered they were actually made right here in Colorado in the 80s, and got really interested in them. However, I was a grad student at the time, and the price on those 4-wheel campers, they're American made, they're high quality pieces of equipment. They're beautiful, but they're also quite costly, especially for a graduate student. I knew a new camper was not in the cards for me at the time, so I started to look for used campers. And then, since I was looking for used campers, I just started looking for whatever I could find. In the Front Range of Colorado, there's a ton of people like me that want campers, that want truck campers. So there's a lot of things flipping, but it also means things flip fast. So it's really hard to actually find a good camper, find one that's priced reasonably, and then get it. One that I had looked at before was like this Scamper. I forgot what the guy was trying to sell it for, a couple $100, but it was beat to trash. Scamper apparently is not one of the greater brands out there. The thing really was in disrepair, and I'm really glad I walked away from that one. The search continued for those first few years I was in Colorado, kind of half-heartedly. Sometimes I'd be searching hard, sometimes I would not be searching that much. I got married in 2015, and I was just still trying to figure it out. I still wanted a camper. I didn't want to drive I-70 to go skiing anymore, but I couldn't figure out how to find a decent used camper that would treat me well. I actually had completely given up. It was Labor Day. I remember this specifically. I'd completely given up the idea of getting a 4-wheel camper. I just couldn't find one. I'll get one later when I have real money and buy one new. And I had actually sketched out plans to just build out the back of my cap. Like I said before, I had an aluminum cap on my truck, and tons of people do that, right? They put a bed back there. I had the high top, so it actually wasn't that bad. I was gonna put maybe a heater back there, and I sketched this whole thing out. If I can find that sketch, I'll put it up right now. This is no joke. The day I sketched out that cap, I actually just kind of said, no more searching for truck campers. I'm just gonna live with what I'm happy with. But still, I'm Tim, and I was on Craigslist, and I forget what I searched. I think I searched like pop-up cap or like pop-up camper. Anytime you search 4-wheel camper, the good stuff was gone in like 2 seconds. But if someone didn't really know they had a 4-wheel camper and they used some different keywords, sometimes you would see interesting things. So I had searched something like pop-up cap or something like that, and in the Denver Craigslist, I saw what looked to me to be a 4-wheel camper, an older one of the old 7-foot fleets that were designed for the original Toyotas. And it was listed at a very good price. Spoiler alert, this camper was listed for $300. So I actually called the person up. They answered in Spanish, and then I had to try to get with them. I think someone else got on the phone and started talking to me in English. And what it was someone had this camper actually at actually at like a auto shop or something like that. And he said, yeah, the camper's here. I just listed it. I had a couple other calls. Do you want to come check it out? And I was like, yeah, I'll come check it out right now. It was Labor Day weekend. I remember it perfectly. And so I jumped in my truck and I checked with the wife and I said like, hey, this is really cool. This is like pretty much the type of camper I've been looking for a long time. It's super reasonably priced, $300. If I drive down to Denver, which is about an hour away, can I get it? And she said, sure. So I went to the ATM and I took out the money and I went there pretty serious about it. I pulled up and the camper was in the back of like an F-150 or something. And it was literally parked behind a taco shop, and two guys named Jose and Jorge were like mechanics that also worked in the back parking lot of this taco shop. It was a pretty interesting place. And they weren't the owners of the camper either. The owner of the camper was having his truck work down there, and he had called them and said, hey, I'm sending someone to come look at that. Will you like let them in or whatever? And so I went there and we looked at it and I popped it up. And I remember the first time popping it up. I'd never even been in a four-wheel camper before. It wasn't in complete disrepair, but it wasn't exactly in great repair either. The lifting panels were gone. One was there, one was not. You used a 2x4 to hold it up. I popped it up and I looked around. It was getting dark and I was pretty excited about it though. And actually, like I said, the person that owned it wasn't even showing me. It was the mechanic. And the mechanic was like, just pay him $200. He'll take $200. And I was like, no, I'm not gonna do that. I just kind of sat there for a while thinking about it. And then I said, tell the owner to come with the jacks. I'm gonna give him $300 and we're putting this thing on my camper. I was like so excited for this thing. I've been looking for a four-wheel camper literally for like 2-3 years. And I finally found one for $300. Definitely needed some TLC, but like it wasn't too bad. There was no water damage in the roof. The canvas was more or less there. And I said, let's just go for it. You know, what's the worst that can happen? $300 investment. I'm going to do okay. So I actually went and had some delicious tacos as I waited for the owner to show up. He showed up with 2 tripod jacks. We unloaded off of this F-150 and we threw it onto my Tacoma. I didn't have any straps, I didn't have any airbags, the Tacoma was riding pretty low with it, and I just put one simple strap around the back that was super sketchy, just off like the tailgate hitch, the tailgate latches, excuse me, and I drove home, and I was kind of surprised. I have a 4-cylinder Tacoma. She drove fine down the highway, and I got home, and it was completely dark out, and I got my wife out, and I even had some friends over too, my buddies Ben and Palmer, and I started just showing them the camper, and I was like, check this thing out. And I was just so excited. It's literally one of the highlights of my life to this day. Like two months before I'd gotten married, and it was very similar. Don't tell my wife, but I was like so excited for this camper just because I've been looking for one for so long. So we just checked it out. We took a bunch of pictures and we were living the dream. That's hence my name on wanderthewest.com. I made a post almost immediately showing everyone the camper I'd finally purchased and how excited I was for it. At that time, I had no plans to repurpose it. I was just going to use it as is, install a heater. That's the only thing I wanted to do. And I was just going to go camping with it and just love having this thing. A few days later, I think, we finally had this camper in the daylight, and that was really the first time I spent significant time in it since I got it. I was living at a condo complex at the time. The camper was just on the back of it. It was fine. And I jacked it up, and I just started checking out what was really in the camper. I started looking at the canvas, realizing maybe it was a little more disrepaired than I thought originally. Started looking that it had the original cabinetry, things like that. But still, I was excited. So I just started cleaning. I didn't want to redo anything. I just wanted to clean and clean and clean. And so that's what I did. I took all the junk out of the camper. I took out, there was actually a solar panel in there. there was a battery already, so that was great. There was a water system. I started to figure out what was going on with that. There was a stove. I got that working. I was excited about that. And I just kind of hung out in the camper and thought about all the awesome memories I was going to make in this thing. So I was so excited. However, with this excitement, there was obviously some problems as well. I realized the truck really needed better suspension in order to handle the camper. And so I took the camper off actually for a little while, put it in my carport and just let it sit while I got my truck figured out. So coming up in a soon video, we'll be putting in those airbags and getting the camper mounted to the truck. I also started to realize that besides maybe the canvas being a little worse for wear, things like that, there were some other issues that definitely need to be taken care of. The ceiling vent actually was not there completely. I don't know when it had blown off. It wasn't there when I bought it either. I don't know how there's a big hole in the roof and no water damage, but I wanted to get it under that carport. So one more reason why I put it under the carport. So one of my first projects was to get a vent on this thing so that it was somewhat waterproof so that I could actually have it on my camper. Its time in my carport didn't last long. It was back on my truck in no time. Like I said, I bought it sometime in September and I was camping in it by November. Our first night was actually in Nebraska somewhere, so I'll talk more about that in a new video too. Once I got it back on the truck, it became very apparent very quickly that this was going to be my new passion project. I was fixing things up left, right, center, and before we know it, we were doing a full demo. I'll start recapping that full demo in the coming videos. That's really it for this video. I just wanted to quickly summarize where this camper came from and the excitement I had when I first got it. $300 from my two friends, Jorge and Jose, down in Denver. I was so excited for this thing. Couple spoiler alerts, I actually eventually met the person online who owned this camper beforehand, ended up doing a complete rebuild like you already know, and ended up making a ton of awesome memories in this thing, which I continue to make. So with that, we'll wrap up this video. Thanks for being patient as this channel was a little quieter. I hope you think this new idea for a handful of videos where I'm just kind of talking and recapping the history of this truck camper hits home with you. If you have any additional questions, make sure you put them in the comments below and I'll address those exact points. You got a question about my heater, you got a question about my roof, whatever it is, let me know. I'm here to educate you on how to redo a project just like this. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe, share with your friends, and we will see you in the next video. Bye-bye. Hopefully that looked good. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.